The three hegemony ships were massive. On the main screen, they looked like giant metal spiders floating through space. Each one was twice the size of the indomitable Spirit. Energy readings are off the charts, Engineer Boram reported. These ships are thousands of years more advanced than anything we've seen. Weapons? Captain Lee asked. Enough to destroy us 50 times over, Boram replied grimly. Kixton studied the approaching vessels from his position on the bridge. The hegemony always sends 3 scouts, 1 to capture prisoners, 1 to study technology, 1 to eliminate witnesses. Which one does what? Dr. Kim asked. It does not matter, Kixton said. They all have the same orders. Capture what they can, destroy the rest. Captain Lee stood at his command position, thinking. His crew waited for orders. Kixton watched the humans work together. Even facing impossible odds, they did not panic. They did not abandon each other. Communications Officer Minho, Captain Lee said. Can you contact them? I can try, Captain. But the hegemony has never been interested in talking. Try anyway. Minho worked at his station for several minutes. Then he shook his head. They're not responding. But I am detecting scanning beams. They're studying our ship. What will they learn from the scans? Boram asked Kixton. Everything, Kixton replied. Ship design, weapons, crew composition. They will know exactly how dangerous we are. And how dangerous are we? Captain Lee asked with a slight smile. Boram checked her tactical displays. Not very, Captain. Our weapons are designed for exploration, not combat. We have mining lasers and defensive shields. That's about it. But they don't know that yet, Dr. Kim said thoughtfully. Captain Lee nodded. Exactly. Kixton, how long do hegemony scouts usually observe before attacking? Not long. Maybe an hour to complete their scans and decide what to do with us. Then we have an hour to come up with a plan. The next 60 minutes were the most intense of Kixton's life. The human crew worked together like a single organism. Each person had ideas. Each person contributed. No one's opinion was dismissed. We can't outfight them, Boram said. But maybe we can outthink them. The energy weapon that disabled my ship, Kixton said. It is still active in this region of space. What if we could turn it against them? Minho looked up from his station. You mean overload their systems the same way it overloaded yours? Possibly. But it would require very precise calculations. And someone would have to get close to the energy source. How close? Captain Lee asked. Kixton did the math in his head. Close enough to manually trigger an overload. The ship doing it would be destroyed. The bridge fell silent. Captain Lee walked to the window and stared out at the approaching hegemony vessels. There might be another way, Dr. Kim said slowly. What if we don't try to destroy all 3 ships? What if we just disable them? How? Boram asked. The same energy that trapped Kixton's ship. If we could create a controlled burst instead of an overload. Kixton's eyes widened. It might work. But the calculations would be extremely difficult. And the timing would have to be perfect. Can you do the calculations? Captain Lee asked. Yes, but someone would still have to pilot a ship close to the energy source. Very close. It would be very dangerous, Captain Lee nodded. I'll take a shuttle. The rest of you can escape while I set off the energy burst. No, Dr. Kim said immediately. We're not leaving you behind. It's the logical choice, Captain Lee said. 1 life to save 3. Kixton stared at the captain. Those were almost the exact words his crew had used when they left him to die. But coming from Captain Lee, they sounded different, not cold. Not calculating, sad, Captain, Kixton said quietly. On my ship, my crew made the logical choice. They saved the many by sacrificing the one. But you taught me something. Logic is not always right. What do you mean? I mean we find another way. All of us together. For the next 30 minutes, they worked on a new plan. Instead of one person sacrificing themselves, they would all take risks together. Boram would modify the shuttle to handle the energy field. Minho would coordinate the timing from the main ship. Dr. Kim would monitor everyone's health during the mission. Kixton would make the calculations and guide them to the exact spot. And Captain Lee would pilot the shuttle, but not alone. Kixton would go with him. I don't like it, Dr. Kim said. Too many things can go wrong. All the good plans have risks, Captain Lee replied. The question is whether we take those risks together or alone. 20 minutes before the hegemony ships reached them, they launched their plan. Captain Lee and Kixton took the shuttle toward the energy anomaly. The indomitable Spirit moved to a safe distance, ready to coordinate the energy burst. In the shuttle, Kickstan worked frantically on his calculations while Captain Lee piloted them through dangerous energy fields. "The readings are getting stronger," Captain Lee said. "How much closer?" "2 more kilometers," Kickstan replied. "But Captain, I need to tell you something. If this plan fails, I want you to know that these past few days have been the best of my life." Captain Lee smiled. "Mine too. It's amazing what you can accomplish when you work together." The shuttle reached the center of the energy field, just as the hegemony ships entered weapons range. Kickstan sent his final calculations to the main ship. "Now Minho," Captain Lee called. The indomitable spirit fired a precisely targeted burst at the energy anomaly. The effect was immediate and spectacular. Waves of disruptive energy spread out in all directions, washing over the 3 hegemony vessels. Their engines went dark, their weapons powered down, their shields collapsed. It worked. Dr. Kim's voice came over the radio. "All 3 ships are disabled." Captain Lee and Kickston guided the shuttle back to the main ship. The hegemony vessels drifted helplessly in space, just as Kickston's research ship had done days earlier. "What do we do with them now?" Boram asked. "We help them," Captain Lee said simply. "Help them?" Minho said in surprise. "They were going to capture us." "That doesn't matter," Captain Lee replied. "They need help. That's enough." Over the next several hours, the human crew worked to provide basic life support to the disabled hegemony ships. They sent food, water, and medical supplies. They helped repair critical systems. The hegemony crews were confused by this kindness. They had expected to be executed or imprisoned. Instead, they were being saved by the same people they had planned to capture. Through Minho's translation equipment, the hegemony captain spoke to Captain Lee. "Why do you help us?" "We are your enemies." "You were our enemies," Captain Lee corrected. "Now you're just people who need help." "This makes no logical sense." Kickston stepped forward. "Captain, may I speak?" Captain Lee nodded. Kickston addressed the hegemony captain directly. "A few days ago, I would have agreed with you. I believed that logic was everything, that only the strong deserved to survive, that helping strangers was foolish." He paused, looking around at the human crew. "But these humans taught me something important. The strongest civilizations are not the ones that conquer others. They are the ones that help others, the ones that believe every life has value, the ones that refuse to leave anyone behind." The hegemony captain was silent for a long time. Finally, he spoke. "You have given us much to think about. We will return to our people and share what we have learned here." "What will you tell them?" Dr. Kim asked. "That we encountered a species more advanced than any technology. A species that has mastered the most difficult skill in the universe." "What skill is that?" Captain Lee asked. "Compassion," the hegemony captain replied. 3 days later, the hegemony ships were repaired enough to return home. Before they left, their captain sent one final message. "Human ship Indomitable Spirit. You have changed the course of our civilization today. We came here as conquerors. We leave as students. Our people will learn of your ways." After the hegemony ships departed, Kickstan stood on the bridge of the human vessel. He had a choice to make. The humans could take him to Althari space, back to his own people, or he could stay with them and continue exploring. "What will you do?" Captain Lee asked. Kickston thought about his crew who had left him to die alone. Then he thought about the humans who had taught him the value of every individual life. "I would like to stay," he said, "if you will have me. I want to learn more about this thing you call compassion." "Welcome to the crew," Captain Lee said with a smile. As the indomitable spirit continued its journey through the stars, Kickston began sending messages to other species throughout the galaxy. He told them about the humans, about their strange philosophy, about their belief that no one should be left behind. Slowly, other alien ships began seeking out human vessels. Not to conquer or trade, but to learn, to understand how a species could be strong by protecting the weak, how they could survive by helping others survive. And in the depths of space, word spread about the humans who had broken the silence, the humans who came not with weapons but with open hands. The humans who proved that the greatest strength in the universe was not the power to destroy, but the courage to save. Kickstan had been left to die alone in space, but he had been found by beings who refused to let anyone face death alone, and in saving him, they had planted the seeds of hope throughout the galaxy. Kickstan could not believe what he was hearing. The translation was rough, but the meaning was clear. A human ship had found him, And they wanted to help. This made no sense. Humans and Althari were not enemies, but they were not friends either. Why would humans risk their lives for a single Althari? What did they want in return? Unknown human vessel, Kixthan transmitted back. I am grateful for your contact, but I must warn you, my ship is damaged beyond repair. There is nothing of value here. I will be dead in 10 days. There is no logical reason for you to help me. The response came quickly. This is Captain Lee Deho of the human ship Indomitable Spirit. We don't need a logical reason. We help because that's the right thing to do. Can you receive a boarding party? Kixthan stared at the communication panel. These humans were either lying or insane. In Althari culture, no one did anything without a logical reason. Helping a stranger from another species made no sense at all. But he was dying anyway. What did he have to lose? Captain Lee, Kixthan replied. You may board, but I warn you again. I have nothing to give you. My crew abandoned me here to die. I am not worth saving. There was a long pause. Then the human captain's voice came back, and even through the translation, Kixthan could hear anger. Your crew left you to die. Alone? It was the logical choice, Kixthan explained. The escape pod could only hold 11 beings safely. I was the least valuable crew member. They voted to leave me behind. Another pause. Then we're coming aboard. Stay where you are. 20 minutes later, Kixthan heard strange sounds from the docking bay. The humans had somehow connected their ship to his. He heard footsteps in the corridor. Heavy boots, not the light clicking of Althari feet. Kixthan was scared. He had heard stories about humans. They were violent and unpredictable. They made decisions based on emotions instead of logic. They fought wars over ideas instead of resources. But when the humans entered the bridge, they did not look violent. They moved carefully, like they were afraid of scaring him. There were 4 of them, wearing strange suits that covered their whole bodies. The leader stepped forward and removed his helmet. Kixthan saw a human face for the first time. It looked strange. Too much pink skin, no protective carapace, tiny eyes. But the expression was kind. Kixthan was not sure. He did not understand human emotions. I'm Captain Lee Deho, the human said. His voice came through a small device that translated his words. This is my medical officer, Dr. Kim Hyejin, and my engineer, Park Boram, and my communications officer, Choi Min Ho. The female human stepped forward. I'm Dr. Kim. I need to check your health. Can you tell me how you're feeling? Kixthan was confused. Why do you care how I feel? I am not your species. I am not your responsibility. Dr. Kim looked at the captain. They exchanged words in their own language. Then she turned back to Kixthan. Because you're hurt and alone, she said simply. That's enough. For the next hour, Dr. Kim examined Kixthan while the others explored the ship. She was gentle and careful. She asked many questions about Althari biology. She took samples of his blood and scanned his body with strange devices. Your breathing is shallow, she told him, and your body temperature is too low. How long since you last ate? 2 days, Kixthan admitted. I am trying to save food. Dr. Kim shook her head. That's not good. We need to get you proper nutrition. Engineer Park Boram returned from checking the ship's systems. She spoke to Captain Lee in human language. Kixthan's translator could only catch some words. Engine, impossible. Completely destroyed. Captain Lee nodded and turned to Kixthan. Can you travel? We want to take you to our ship. Why? Kixthan asked again. I still do not understand. What do you gain from saving me? We gain the knowledge that we did the right thing, Captain Lee said. That's enough. Moving to the human ship was strange. Their artificial gravity felt different. The air smelled wrong. Everything was designed for creatures who walked on 2 legs instead of 4. But the humans made space for him. Dr. Kim set up a medical area with equipment to monitor his health. Engineer Boram showed him how their life support systems worked. Communications Officer Min Ho worked on improving the translation between their languages. Your ship is very different from ours, Kixthan observed. How so? Captain Lee asked. Everything is designed for individuals, Kixthan said. Private quarters, personal storage, individual workstations. Our ships are designed for group living. We share everything. Individual space is important to humans, Captain Lee explained. We need time alone to think and rest. This was hard for Kixthan to understand. Althari were never alone. From birth to death, they lived in groups. Individual needs were not important. But here on the human ship, he had his own small room. his own bed, his own things. It felt strange, but also somehow peaceful. Dr. Kim brought him food that she had modified for his biology. It was not perfect, but it was better than the emergency rations on his ship. "How did you learn to adapt our food so quickly?" he asked. "Trial and error," she said. "And a lot of guessing. I studied xenobiology in school, but you're the first living Althari I've met." "You could have killed me with the wrong mixture," Kixthon pointed out. Dr. Kim looked shocked. "We would never take that risk. I tested everything multiple times. I would rather go slow and be safe." Again, Kixthon was confused. Why would this human be so careful with his life? They barely knew each other. That night, as the ship traveled through space, Kixthon could not sleep. He activated the communication system in his room. "Captain Lee, are you awake?" The captain's voice came back immediately. "Yes, is everything okay? I have a question. Why did you really save me? And please do not say it was the right thing to do. I need to understand the logic." There was a long pause. Then Captain Lee spoke. 10 years ago, my ship was attacked by pirates. We were stranded just like you were. A Centauri vessel found us and saved all 43 crew members. They didn't know us. We couldn't pay them, but they saved us anyway. "So you saved me to repay a debt?" "No," Captain Lee said. "I saved you because I learned something that day. The universe is big and dangerous and lonely. The only thing that makes it bearable is knowing that someone will help when you need it, that someone cares if you live or die." Kixthon thought about this for a long time. "But I am not human. Your species gains nothing from my survival." "You're wrong," Captain Lee said. "We gain everything. We gain the knowledge that mercy exists in the universe. We gain proof that different species can help each other. We gain hope." For the first time in his life, Kixthon began to understand that logic was not the only way to make decisions. Sometimes caring about others was more important than calculations and efficiency. It was a disturbing thought, but also somehow a hopeful one. Kixthon had been on the human ship for 3 days. Each day brought new surprises that challenged everything he thought he knew about intelligent life. The first surprise was breakfast. Dr. Kim brought him food every morning at the same time. She had worked for hours to create nutrition that his body could process. She asked how he felt. She checked his health. She smiled when she saw he was getting stronger. "Why do you smile at me?" Kixthon asked on the second day. Dr. Kim looked confused. "Because I'm happy you're feeling better. But my health does not affect your survival. My recovery gives you no benefit." "It gives me joy," Dr. Kim said. "Seeing others heal and grow strong makes me happy." Kixthon studied her face. In Althari culture, individual happiness was not important. Only the success of the group mattered. But this human seemed to genuinely care about his personal well-being. The second surprise was Engineer Boram. She spent hours every day trying to repair his research equipment. The devices had been damaged when his ship lost power. Most of the data was corrupted. "This is impossible to fix," she said on the first day. "Then why do you continue trying?" Kixthon asked. "Because impossible just means no one has figured out how to do it yet," Boram replied. She worked for 2 full days, taking apart the alien technology and rebuilding it with human components. She cursed in Korean when things did not work. She celebrated when she made progress. She never gave up. "Your research is important," she told Kixthon. 6 months of scientific work should not be lost because of an engine failure. When she finally recovered 70% of his data, Kixthon was amazed. Not just by her skill, but by her dedication to preserving his work. The third surprise was Communications Officer Min Ho. He spent hours teaching Kixthon about human culture. He showed him human music, human art, human stories. "Listen to this," Min Ho said, playing a piece of classical music. This was written by a human named Ludwig van Beethoven. He was deaf when he composed it. He could not hear. How could he create music? He felt it, Min Ho explained. He composed with his heart instead of his ears. The music was strange to Kixthon's hearing organs, but there was something about it that touched him in ways he could not explain. It was not logical. It was not efficient, but it was kind of beautiful. "Why do humans create art?" Kixthon asked. "Because we need beauty in our lives," Min Ho said. "We need something beyond just survival." This idea was revolutionary to Kixthon. Althari art was always functional. It served a purpose for the community. But humans created beauty just for the sake of beauty itself. The biggest surprise was Captain Lee. Every evening he invited Kixthan to join the senior staff for dinner. They ate together and talked about their day. They discussed their work, their problems, their hopes. In Althari culture, junior members do not speak at senior meetings, Kixthan said after the first dinner. Why not? Captain Lee asked. Because we lack experience and wisdom. Our opinions are not valuable. Captain Lee shook his head. Everyone's opinion has value. Different perspectives make better decisions. During these dinners, Kixthan learned about human history. He learned about their wars and their peace treaties. He learned about their failures and their triumphs. He learned about their philosophy. Humans believe that every individual life has worth, Captain Lee explained. Not because of what they can contribute, but because they exist. Even weak individuals. Even those who cannot contribute to society? Especially them, Dr. Kim said. A society is judged by how it treats its weakest members. This was the opposite of everything Kixthan had been taught. Althari society valued strength, intelligence, and usefulness. Those who could not contribute were left behind. But how do you survive as a species? Kixthan asked. If you protect the weak, they will slow down the strong. You're thinking about it wrong, Engineer Boram said. Protecting the weak doesn't slow us down. It makes us stronger. How? Because the weak today might be the strong tomorrow, Captain Lee explained. Because diversity makes us adaptable. Because compassion brings out the best in everyone. On the fourth day, Kixthan made a discovery that changed everything. While reviewing his recovered research data, he found something alarming. The energy phenomenon that had destroyed his ship was not natural. It was artificial. It was a weapon signature from an ancient species called the hegemony. Kixthan rushed to the bridge with his findings. Captain Lee, you need to see this. The energy that disabled my ship, it was not an accident. The human crew gathered around as Kixthan explained his discovery. The energy readings matched historical data about hegemony weapons. The hegemony was an aggressive species that had conquered dozens of worlds before disappearing thousands of years ago. You're saying they're back? Dr. Kim asked. I am saying the weapon signature is active again. Kixthan replied. This region of space may be a trap. Captain Lee studied the data. How does this weapon work? It disables ships and strands them here. Then hegemony scout ships arrive to capture survivors for study. Study? Boram asked. They learn about new species before they invade their homeworlds, Kixthan explained. My crew was supposed to be captured, but they escaped in the pod. And you were left behind to be taken, Minho said quietly. Kixthan nodded. I was expendable. If the hegemony learned about Althari capabilities from studying me, it was an acceptable loss. The bridge fell silent. The humans looked at each other with expressions Kixthan was beginning to recognize. Anger, disgust, determination. No one is expendable, Captain Lee said firmly. No one. Dr. Kim put her hand on Kixthan's shoulder. I'm sorry your crew thought otherwise. For the first time, Kixthan felt something he had never experienced before. He felt valued, not for what he could contribute, but for who he was as an individual. Captain, Minho called from his station. I'm detecting ships approaching. 3 vessels, unknown configuration. Captain Lee moved to his command chair.
How long until they reach us?
6 hours at their current speed. The hegemony scouts, Kixthan said quietly. They have found us. Captain Lee looked at his crew. Options? We could run, Boram said. Our ship is faster than most alien vessels. We could hide, Minho suggested. Find an asteroid field or nebula. We could fight, Dr. Kim said. Though we're outnumbered. Captain Lee nodded. All good options. But there's one more thing to consider. He turned to Kixthan. If we run, the hegemony will eventually find other ships in this region. Other crews will be captured. Other species will be studied and invaded. Kixthan understood. You want to stop them here? I want to give everyone a choice, Captain Lee said. Including you. This isn't your fight. We can put you in an escape pod and send you toward Althari space. Kixthan looked around the bridge. These humans had saved his life. They had shown him kindness he had never experienced. They had treated him like he mattered. No, he said firmly. This is my fight too. For the first time in his life, Kixthan made a decision based not on logic, but on loyalty and friendship. It felt strange. It felt frightening. It felt right. Captain Lee Daho stared at the star charts on his screen. The human exploration ship Indomitable Spirit had been traveling through this region for 3 weeks. They were mapping new systems and looking for signs of intelligent life. "Captain," called Communications Officer Choi Minho from his station, "I'm picking up something strange. Very faint signal about 2 light hours away." Lee stood up and walked over to Minho's console. The bridge crew turned to listen. Chief Engineer Park Bo-ram stopped her work on the navigation systems. Medical Officer Dr. Kim Hae-jin looked up from her research tablets. "What kind of signal?" Lee asked. Minho adjusted his equipment. Static filled the bridge speakers. Then, very quietly, they heard something else. Alien voices speaking in clicking, buzzing sounds. "It's a distress call," Minho said. "I can make out some basic patterns." "Someone needs help," Lee frowned. They were far from any known shipping lanes. What would an alien ship be doing out here? How far off our planned route would we have to go? He asked Bo-ram. The engineer checked her charts. "About 6 hours, Captain. We'd have to change course now if we want to reach them." "Do we know what species it is?" Dr. Kim asked. Minho worked at his translation computer. "Based on the language patterns, I think it's Althari. We've had limited contact with them before. They're the insect-like species from the Vel system." Lee remembered the reports about the Althari. They were intelligent and advanced, but their culture was very different from humans. They made all decisions as a group. Individual opinions did not matter much to them. "What do we know about their current political situation?" Lee asked. "Last I heard, they were neutral toward humans," Dr. Kim said. "Not hostile, but not exactly friendly either. They think we're too emotional and unpredictable." Bo-ram crossed her arms. "Captain, we're supposed to be mapping the Kepler region. Command expects us back in 4 months. If we stop to help every ship in trouble, we stop," Lee said firmly. "That's what we do. That's what makes us human." The bridge fell quiet. Everyone knew the captain's history. 10 years ago, his own ship had been disabled in hostile space. A Centauri rescue vessel had found them and saved all 43 crew members. Lee never forgot that debt. "Minho, can you get a better fix on their position?" Lee ordered. "Working on it, Captain." Minho's fingers moved quickly over his controls. "Got it. The signal is coming from a ship that appears to be dead in space. No engine signatures. Very low power. Life signs?" Dr. Kim asked. "Hard to tell from this distance, but someone is transmitting that distress call." Lee made his decision. "Bo-ram, change course. Take us to that ship at best speed." "Yes, Captain," Bo-ram replied. She did not argue, even though Lee could see she had concerns. As the Indomitable Spirit changed direction, Lee called a meeting in the conference room. His 3 senior officers gathered around the table. "Talk to me about the risks," Lee said. Bo-ram spoke first. "We don't know why their ship is disabled. Could be engine failure, could be an attack. If it was an attack, the attackers might still be around. The Althari are physically stronger than humans," Dr. Kim added. "If this is some kind of trap, we could be in trouble." Minho nodded. "And their culture is very different from ours. They might not understand why we're helping them. Could cause diplomatic problems." Lee listened to all their concerns. They were good officers and they were right to worry. But Lee's mind was made up. "Here's what we're going to do," he said. "We approach carefully. Full scans before we get close. If there's any sign of danger, we leave immediately. But if someone needs help, we help them." "What if they don't want our help?" Bo-ram asked. "Then we offer it anyway," Lee replied. "That's the human way." 6 hours later, the Indomitable Spirit reached the coordinates of the distress signal. On the main screen, they could see the alien ship. It was larger than their vessel, with a design that looked like a giant insect. But it was clearly dead. No lights, no movement, no energy signatures except for a very weak beacon. "Scans show the ship has suffered major engine damage," Bo-ram reported. "Life support is barely functioning. I'm detecting 1 life form aboard." "Just one?" Lee asked. "How big is that ship?" "Big enough for at least 12 crew members," Minho said. Dr. Kim shook her head. "That doesn't make sense. Why would only 1 person be left on a ship that size?" Lee studied the alien vessel on the screen. Something was very wrong here. But that did not change what they had to do. "Minho, can you communicate with them?" "I'm trying, Captain. The signal is very weak." Minho worked at his console for several minutes. "I think I've got a connection. Very basic translation matrix." A new voice came through the speakers. It was weak and filled with strange clicking sounds. Minho's computer tried to translate the words. "This is Research Vessel Veltar. Engine failure. One survivor. Need help? The message repeated every few minutes. Always the same words. Always the same weak voice. One survivor, Dr. Kim said quietly. What happened to the rest of the crew? Lee stood up from his command chair. There's only one way to find out. Boram, take us closer. But keep the engines ready for a quick escape. Yes, Captain. As they approached the alien ship, Lee felt the familiar weight of command. Every decision could mean life or death for his crew. But some decisions were easy to make. Someone was in trouble. Someone needed help. That was enough. Minho, send a message, Lee ordered. Tell them we're humans from the ship Indomitable Spirit. Tell them we want to help. Minho transmitted the message. They waited for a response. The alien ship drifted silently in space. Then very quietly a new voice came through the speakers. The computer translated the words, humans. You came to help? I do not understand. Why would you risk your ship for a stranger? Lee smiled. That was exactly the kind of question a human would ask too in different circumstances. Minho, tell them that's what humans do, Lee said. Tell them nobody gets left behind. Kixton stared at the broken control panel in front of him. Red lights blinked everywhere. The ship's main engine was dead. The backup power was failing. And the life support system would last maybe 2 weeks if he was lucky. The research vessel Veltar had been his home for 6 months. Now it drifted through empty space like a dead thing. No power, no communication, no hope. The energy readings were wrong, Kixton whispered to himself. His voice echoed in the empty bridge. The mysterious energy source they had come to study had done something to their ship. One moment they were taking measurements. The next moment everything went dark. Kixton was young for an Althari. His insect-like body was smaller than the others. His forearms moved nervously as he checked the systems again. Maybe he had missed something. Maybe there was still a way to fix this. But deep down he knew the truth. The ship was dying. And soon he would be too. Heavy footsteps echoed through the corridor. The other 11 crew members were coming back from the engine room. Kixton's heart sank when he saw their faces. In Althari culture, facial expressions told everything. And right now they all looked the same. Grim, decided, final. Captain Vorthak stepped forward. His large frame cast a shadow over Kixton. The engine is beyond repair, he said in their clicking language. The escape pod can only hold 10 beings safely. Maybe 11 if we crowd together. Kixton counted quickly in his head. 12 crew members. One escape pod for 10, maybe 11. The math was simple. Someone had to stay behind. We must make a logical choice, said Science Officer Kelthan. She was the smartest of them all. The survival of our species depends on preserving the most valuable members. The crew formed a circle around Kixton. This was how Althari made important decisions. Everyone would speak. Everyone would vote. The group's choice was always right. Kixton is the youngest, said Engineer Moxall. He has contributed the least to our research. His family line is common, added Navigator Hexon. His genetic material is not rare or special. If we must sacrifice one for the good of many, logic demands it be him, concluded Medical Officer Zilka. Kixton felt his breathing speed up, but he said nothing. This was the Althari way. The group was always more important than the individual. He had been taught this since he was young. The needs of many came before the needs of one. Captain Vorthak nodded slowly. All in favor of leaving Kixton behind while the rest escape in the pod? 11 arms raised. 11 voices said agreed. Kixton's arm stayed down. But his vote did not matter. The group had decided. It is logical, Captain Vorthak said. Kixton, you will remain on the ship. We will leave you enough food and water for 2 weeks. Maybe a rescue ship will find you before then. Everyone knew this was a lie. They were too far from any trade routes. No one would come looking for them here. But the lie made the choice easier to accept. The crew moved quickly after that. They gathered their personal items. They took most of the food and water to the escape pod. They left Kixton with basic rations and a small supply of oxygen tablets. Record your research notes, Science Officer Kelthon told him. If someone finds the ship, your work should not be lost. Transmit a distress signal every 6 hours, added Communications Officer Pexel. Save power, but keep trying. Die with honor, said Captain Vorthak. It was the traditional Althari farewell. One by one, they left the bridge. Kixton heard their footsteps moving toward the escape pod bay. He heard the heavy door close. He heard the pod launch and fly away into the darkness. Then there was only silence. Kixton sat alone on the bridge of the dead ship. The emergency lights cast strange shadows on the walls. Outside the windows, stars looked down at him like cold eyes. He began to record his final log. Personal record of Kixton, junior researcher, research vessel Veltar. Ship time. Day 187 of Deep Space Mission. I have been left behind by my crew following standard logical protocols. The ship has suffered catastrophic engine failure. Life support will last approximately 14 standard days. He paused the recording and looked around the empty bridge. 11 empty chairs. 11 crew members who had chosen to live. And one chair where he sat, chosen to die. I do not blame them, he continued recording. This is the logical choice. I am the least valuable member of our expedition. My research into xenobiology is incomplete. My family will understand. The Althari way is the survival of the strongest and most useful. But even as he said the words, something felt wrong. A small voice in his mind asked questions he had never thought before. Was this really the only way? Did logic always have to be so cold? Kixton shook his head. These were dangerous thoughts. Individual feelings were not important. The group was everything. He spent the next few hours organizing his research data. If someone did find the ship, they would at least learn about the energy phenomenon that had killed them. His work on alien life forms was detailed and complete. Maybe it would help other researchers someday. As the ship's night cycle began, Kixton made his way to his small quarters. The room felt huge and empty now. The silence was so complete it hurt his hearing organs. He activated the automatic distress beacon. Every 6 hours it would send out a weak signal. The message was simple. Research vessel Veltar. Engine failure. 1 survivor. Need immediate assistance, but Kixton knew no one would hear it. They were lost in a region of space that no ship had ever explored. The nearest trading post was months away, even with a fast ship. He lay down on his sleeping platform and stared at the ceiling. 14 days, maybe less if something else broke down, maybe more if he was very careful with resources. For the first time in his life, Kixton was completely alone. No crew to follow, no orders to obey, no group decisions to accept. Just him and the dying ship and the cold stars outside. It was terrifying, and somehow, in a way he could not explain, it was also freedom.